Microsoft, Codifying Humanity. Can humor be reduced to an algorithm? This subheadline was written by a bag of warm meat. Story by Tristan Green, editor neural by TNW. Welcome to Codifying Humanity, a new neural series that analyzes the machine learning world's attempt at creating human-level AE. Stop Stop me if you heard this one. A robot walks into a bar and the bartender takes his order. The robot says, "I have whatever my developer likes." If you if you are not laughing right now, it's because the joke isn't funny. And if you are laughing, it's because the joke is funny. That's that's how that's how jokes work. It's also how people work. Humors or not, the premise of the joke is that robots don't have personalities, ideas, thoughts, or desires. Any human like qualities we could attribute to a machine or its outputs are merely reflections of ourselves or its programmers. That doesn't that doesn't sit well with the mainstream perception of AE. We've seen 100 of more variations of the Araba wrote this article trope that the Guardian got called up it last year. Each one promises a near future where human creators are either displaced or forced to work in tandem with machines. In tandem with machines. The common refrain is that AE isn't human like yet, but it will be sooner than you think. And maybe after reading some carefully curated outputs from OpenAI's text generator GPT-3, it started to sound like less like hyperbole and more like good old common sense. We see backflipping robots doing parkour and deepfake face swaps in our social media feeds every day. We have every reason to believe a text generator can do things that seem straight out of the realm of science fiction. At least until we start picking at the seams, because unfortunately a functional understanding of the machinations of deep learning based AE systems doesn't fall within the realm of common sense. Prestidigitation. Here at Neural, we refer to most of what AE does as prestidigitation. That's because there's only a handful of things a typical deep learning system can actually do. But like a real-world magician, developers create incredible programs out of some very basic algorithm foundations. The only difference between a disappearing coin trick and that David Copperfield does in scale, there is no more or less real magic involving the former's illusions and the latter's. And it's the same with AE. Tesla's computers version systems are no more or less human-like that not hot dogs. They essentially perform the exact same function at different scales. It's hard to explain the simplicity of a massively complex AE system to the average person. So let's take something like human and break down exactly what happens when you try to codify it for machines in the simplest possible way. Can an AE be funny? Luckily for us, a former Microsoft intern named Nalib Hossein has already done all the groundwork for us. A few years back, Hossein and a pair of Microsoft AE researchers developed a machine learning system to generate humorous headlines from existing new articles. The big idea was that the AE will make micro edits by changing a single word in serious headline to make it a funny way to make it a funny one. Humor generation strategies, mean grades. Basically, Microsoft invented map libs of for AE and try and demonstrate that computers can be funny. The AI picks a noun or verbs from a headline and replaces it with a word that can be objectively quantified as humorous. So here's a simple answer to the question of whether AI can be funny or not. If you get to define what is and isn't funny, sure, AI can be just as funny as you decide it or isn't. Which brings us right right back to the joke that opened this article. It is it funny? Is the author of who wrote this funny? What is funny? Jokes can be reduced to formulas. Just about anything can be reduced to a formula. But funny isn't a thing, it's a perception. Just like you can hand me an ounce of satisfaction or purchase a mile's worth of courage. You can quantitatively produce funniness in a lab. If a scientist told the mainstream media they were creating jokes in beakers with liquids that fruited and changing colors, we assumed they were in a 1980s cartoon character. But because we have a irrational tendency to imagine computers as having more agency than a chemistry set, people are inclined to accept the idea that an AE can be intentionally funny. So, how do we make a computer spits out a joke? Or in the case of the Microsoft headline system, how do make an AE spit out a funny madlib? The very first problem the Microsoft team ran into was data. As if you want to teach an AE to recognize pictures with cats in them you train it on pictures of cats. Ergo, if you want to teach an AE to be funny, you have to train on things can be things that are funny. Who decides? Arguably, nobody should get to decide that is and isn't objectively funny, because humor is subjective. But if there is anyone qualified to determine that is and isn't funny, is most certainly isn't a team of internal judges at Microsoft or the Amazon Mechanical Turk. You don't have to be Mark Maron to know that big tech is employees and micro gig workers aren't the world's famous experts on what's funny. But what's the alternative? A coalition of well-recognized funny people could create a database of maplibs they find hilarious. Yet, that's no guarantee any given person will get a chuckle out of any of them, or that an AE could use that database to generate new funny headlines. The bottom line: AE can't be funny. Funny as interpreted by the recipient of a joke is subjective, and funny as an intended construct requires intent. Just like fashion, being funny is a complex as people you surround yourself with. What a group of AE devs may find funny or fashionable will likely differ from that the tastes as Fashion Week in a Comedy Central writing rooms, and both the individual and public perception of what humor is constantly changing and evolving. Beloved characters and routines from Ace yesteryear, such as Archie Bunker or Eddie Murphy's homophobic jokes, will likely to fail to find the same acclaim and comedic price in the modern zeitgeist and they that as they did in the past. When it comes to imitation, even the most simple of human experiences, there are certain aspects of our existence that cannot be codified and quantified. It will be hard to argue that humor isn't among them. The Microsoft team didn't develop an AI that create funny headlines. They codify a small sample of Mad Libs as statistically insignificant group of humans found funny and trained a deep learning system on that data. What what they've accomplished is no more or less human than teaching a chatbot which pre-write the message it should select in the response to a customer query. It's more complicated, but it isn't more human.